permanent secretaries here present, the delegation from OGP, the Open Government Partnership, directors and other staff present. On behalf of the Secretary of the Government of Federation, I want to welcome you to the Office of the Secretary of the Government of Federation, and to also, on behalf of my office, that is coordinating particular team, appreciate the time you've created to come and discuss with the Secretary of the Government of Federation on certain areas you've indicated earlier. The OGP has been a partner with the Nigerian government over time and has been able to cooperate in various sectors, of Nigeria in order to see how they can improve governance generally. And there are 4 or 5 sectors where specifically you'll be able to partner with the government and create lots of impact. Therefore, I wouldn't want to say much. My boss will say most of what you need to know. Once more, you're welcome to the Office of the Secretary of the Federation.
So much, esteemed officials, for this opportunity and time. SGF, we have come here at this time before the elections for 2 objectives. The first objective is to celebrate and recognize the considerable amount of gains Nigeria has made in the last 6 years since it joined OGP. And the second objective is to cement those gains that the government has made in open government, to take some remaining actions. There are 5 areas of remaining actions which can cement and take it to the front line, the progress that you have made, and leave a lasting legacy on open government for the country of Nigeria. So if I could go through both of those areas. So on the first, to celebrate and recognize Nigeria in OGP. SGF, I know you're well familiar with OGP. You have participated in several of the forums. I wanted to share with you that I was very privileged that in 2016, I was with President Buhari. I had just joined OGP I was vice president of the World Bank before then. I had just joined OGP and I was on 10 Downing Street with President Buhari on the day that he announced that Nigeria would be the 70th country to join OGP. It was a proud moment for us. And since then, I have come to Nigeria more than any of the 77 countries that are members. And I can share with you honestly and sincerely, not just because I'm here, that Nigeria stands out as one of the countries out of our 77 that has made a large amount of progress through OGP. And I say this because if you look at, so as you know, but for those colleagues who are in the room who may not know, the way OGP works is that it's a co-creation process where action plans, we call it National Action Plans 1 and 2, and there's a third one that will be prepared before the elections. When you look at the commitments, as we call it, in NAP 1 and NAP 2, the 2 action plans, together they represent a very comprehensive, one of the most comprehensive and ambitious open government agendas across the 77 countries. And I highlight this accomplishment because there's no rhetoric in this. It's not words, it's real reforms that have been pursued through these 2 action plans. And together they can accomplish 2 important goals for the country. The first is fighting corruption. If you look at NAP 1 and NAP 2, they have very important actions and reforms, concrete reforms that have been taken to open up the government budget, open budgets. Company register, beneficial ownership register, and I can tell you, Nigeria is one of 7 countries which is joining the beneficial ownership leadership group. So Nigeria is truly a global leader in ending anonymous companies, which is the way in which illicit and stolen wealth is stashed and taken away from the public. So these are very important reforms that have been undertaken by the government in fighting corruption. That's one area. The second area in which the NAP 1 and NAP 2 have made significant progress is in ensuring that there are tangible benefits to ordinary citizens from open government, not just fighting corruption, grand corruption up there. And here, there's been a landmark Right to Information, Freedom of Information Act, which empowers citizens with the right to information. Also, you are one of the notable countries in our 77-country partnership which has taken OGP to the state level and to the local level. And at the state level, as you know, there is transparency through the OGP process at the state level, so citizens can oversee the budgets, citizens can give feedback on health and education. There is very important innovations in Kaduna, for instance, on citizen eyes and ears, where citizens give feedback on whether health and education and road services are being delivered for them. So these are some, SGF, some accomplishments that government has made. If I could turn, with your permission, to the 5 areas, building on this, where you could cement the progress that has been made and leave a lasting legacy. I wanted to submit 5 specific topics for your consideration. We had a very good meeting just before yours with Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed, Minister for Information, and Clem Akbar here, where we went over this. And forgive me if I get anything wrong in this, but I just wanted to submit them for your consideration. We can send it in writing later also. So the first area is in open budgets, and first I want to say in open budgets, the accomplishment of Nigeria is that it has jumped 24 points up in the open budget index, which is measured by a very reputable organization. And Nigeria is one of the top 3 countries to have made the most significant advance in opening up the budget through disclosure of the budget and citizen participation in the budget process at the federal level. So those are very significant accomplishments that I want to congratulate the government, Minister Zainab Ahmed, Minister Akbar, all of you for that. There are 1 or 2 remaining areas which have been in the NAP 1 and 2 where you could make further progress. One of them has to do with the disclosure of the audit, which has some issues, which was in the NAP 1 and 2. And my understanding is there is some ambiguity in this, in the role of the, and that this can be resolved by giving a legal backing, a clear legal backing to a supreme audit institution for which the bill is, I understand, in the national parliament. And with some support also from the executive branch, that establishment of a supreme audit institution may in fact be an important step to closing that loop, to making progress on open budgets by having accountability from an independent supreme audit institution. So that is one area for consideration. The second area which we have discussed is the Open Treasury Portal, which is a very good way to have transparency in the public spending that citizens can see and monitor. It was very useful when Minister Akbar set this up also for COVID-19 spending, so civil society could monitor. There's some issues there which we have discussed. They will be taking it forward. So that's on open budget. That's the first of the areas. The second area is on open contracts, and this concerns BPP SGF, which I understand reports to you. So with your permission, I want to just go over that a bit more. So open contracts, open public procurement contracts are really a very important reform that Nigeria advanced. And done properly, this could have a major impact for the country. And to share with you one example from a peer country of yours in OGP, Ukraine, before the Russian invasion. Ukraine, where the oligarchs have a very powerful hold on procurement contracts, they capture these. Young reformers after the Maidan Revolution, the government, civil society, private sector, used the OGP platform to institute 2 platforms. One was called ProZoro, the other one was called DoZoro. And what they do is they take all public procurement contracts, disclose them in open data standards, so anyone can search them. And citizens and civil society and small businesses can report violations in contract implementation. In 2 years, when they implemented this through 2 OGP action plans, the government reported saving $1 billion in 2 years. 82% of the private sector reported reduced corruption from the use of this contract. And there was a 50% increase in new businesses bidding for public contracts. So this is the gain you can get. Now, in Nigeria, in the last 3 visits that I've had, I see a huge promise because the intent was to make this open contract. But the candid reality is there are a few issues to be addressed. The Nokopo platform, which is managed by BPP, is not yet reliable or stable, to put it very candidly. And there are issues of user interface with the Nokopo platform. So it's hard for MDAs to interface with it. I must say candidly, I have been visiting BPP in my visits earlier. And if there is something that could be done to fix this problem, that would go a long way for the country. And before the elections, if this could be fixed, it could be a lasting legacy for the government. I have shared with Minister Zainab Ahmed and Minister Akbar that beyond the fixing of the Nokopo platform, if the MDAs to populate the platform with contracts, right now they have a difficulty in using the platform, but if sanctions and incentives could be put in place before the elections, that could be a lasting contribution to lock in incentives. There is one other suggestion related to open contracting, that the landmark register that the government is putting in place, starting tomorrow we are doing the event, if that can be linked to open contracts, that could be very powerful. To give you an example from another country, a month ago I was in the World Economic Forum in Davos with the Slovakian Prime Minister. And in Slovakia, what they've done is that any company that gets a public procurement contract must be on the register, otherwise it cannot get the contract. So I mentioned to SDF that at this early stage in the development of the registry, if the 2 platforms could be linked, that would ensure that downstream you can ensure that companies that get the contracts are in fact, we know who the owners are. That's the link. And the last thing on open contracting, SGF, is the way I understand this is presently the law, the act is presently set up in Nigeria. It's about ex post reporting on the contract that was awarded. That is, after the contract was awarded, you have to report on the Nokopo platform. The best practice in other countries is ex ante, before you award the contract. You have to disseminate it so people know and they can compete. So that's just one input that I want to put for you. This is the second area, which was on open contracts after open budgets. With your permission, if I can go to the next one, which is on the oil and gas subsidy, which is a big issue right now. So I know that's a very challenging issue, and as I discussed with Minister Ahmed, that's one of the drivers of the fiscal crisis. In NAP 1 and NAP 2, there was a commitment to ensure transparency and accountability of NNPC. It has not made much progress, SGF. There are political considerations, I don't want to go into that, but just because it was a commitment in NAP 1 and NAP 2, and because you oversee the ministers and so on, one way is in NAP 3, the upcoming NAP, National Action Plan. If the Ministry of Petroleum and NNPC could be part of the OGP process, they could themselves look to see what more they can do. Now that they're a limited liability company, what more needs to be done? That's just a small consideration because it was already a commitment in the first 2 NAPs for the for the next NAP. The fourth issue that I wanted to mention is on Freedom of Information Act. As I mentioned, this freedom of information is something which can really make a difference in the lives of ordinary Nigerians. I can tell you in Sri Lanka, for instance, just to give you another example, coming out of the war, when they had their civil war, rural Sri Lankans in villages were able to use the Freedom of Information Act to demand the benefits that government had promised to them that they never got. And through freedom of information, even the most poor, rural, marginalized groups were able to get the compensation that was due to them. That is the promise of freedom of information. My understanding is there are some issues in implementation. This requires, because you oversee the civil service SGF, this requires training of public servants, civil servants, But also there's one specific issue we have picked up, which I wanted to share with you, that we understand that at least for some civil servants, for no bad intent, they still tend to see that the Official Services Act supersedes the Freedom of Information Act when courts have ruled the opposite. It may be useful, the suggestion from civil society for your consideration is it may be useful for the civil service rules to clarify through some kind of notification that Freedom of Information Act supersedes the Official Secrets Act rather than the other way around. I just passed this on behalf of, and the last area, and I'll stop there, has to do with institutionalization and transition of the OGP group, the steering committee and the secretariat in Nigeria. You know, you've made so much progress in the last 6 years because the OGP process has been very well led. And I should really commend Minister Akbar, who's been an incredible leader. We showcase him in all our global forums. He's one of our leading ministers across the partnership. And so the two quick suggestions here are, you know, there's supposed to be a transition and passing of co-chairs from Minister Akbar to another minister, as per. There is a sense that because the agenda of remaining actions that are needed, open budgets, open contracts, fiscal subsidy for oil and gas, they are significantly Ministry of Finance domains, that in the remaining months to change the leadership at this stage may be a bit disruptive and may not get the progress. So we mentioned to Minister Ahmed, and I mentioned it to you, that it may, and all the stakeholders we consulted had one request: please see if Minister Akbar can see it through to the finish line, because the agenda that remains is significantly in their domain. And at this stage, it would be. And the last point on transition and institutionalization, SGF, is simply that there's a very good group, several of them in the room, who are the secretariat of OGP in Nigeria. If there's a budget line, there's no fiscal cost, but institutionalizing it, recognizing it as a department, may ensure that it outlasts the elections. Let me stop there. I apologize if I went too long, but I turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, CEO Sanjay.
Your team, let me formally welcome you to the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and thank you for the great job that you're doing in the process of promoting transparency and openness in government activities across the globe. And we also want to put it on record our appreciation for your particular interest in Nigeria. I was told you visited now, this is about the third or fourth time within a very short period of our enlisting as the 77th member of the OGP. And also the modest efforts that we put in place, which have led to the globe acknowledging the fact that we are making progress, slow as it might look, but there has been steady progress. And I into the membership of OGP, and he made it quite clear that his desire is to see it aid and assist him in fighting corruption in Nigeria, having come onto the government, headship of the government, campaigned on three main agendas. I know that personally because I was the director of contact and mobilization of the campaign. So the campaign in the framing of our agenda for action. And the top on the list was fighting corruption. Diversifying the economy came second, and securing the nation was the third item on the agenda. And I know that President Muhammadu Buhari has consistently pursued with every vigor this fight. I know that over the course of the years, you have mentioned certain areas in which we have made progressive successes have been achieved in the areas of budgeting. Our budgets have become more open now. more transparent. And it has, in accordance with fiscal transparency, we have many stakeholders involved in our budgeting process. And I believe that going into the future, the urban budget system will become institutionalized in this country, and that people will have an opportunity of interrogating the budget and finding out if this budget are meant just for the figures or they are meant to really be, in fact, impactful on the lives of the people. And I believe through several other processes, the budget is being interrogated on a daily basis. I know that even after the budget has been passed, we've created something in my office, which is the Central Delivery and Coordinating Unit. Yeah, for the purposes of monitoring government policies, projects, and programs. We have gone quite far in even trying to institutionalize it. I have a draft of even an executive order. Yeah, because the fact of the matter is that you can have the most laudable and beautiful project, policies, programs, or projects, but if they are not monitored, they are not followed up, and they are not properly in tune with the government priorities. Yes. It will all amount to a wasteful expenditure at the end of the day. So because of that reason, we've partnered with different organizations, and I think at the last meeting in Lagos, the OGP participated. What we are trying to do is to have a presidential order on the improving performance management, coordination, and implementation of the presidential priorities of the federal government. Because in the unit that we have created here, the ministries have received ministerial mandates. When they came on board in 2019, we had a retreat which was headed by PAL and some private organizations. And at the end of the retreat, we fashioned the 9 priority areas, which are basically broken down from the 3 key ones: security, fighting corruption, and diversifying the economy. And we broke it into 9 segments. And the ministers, at the end of the retreat, when they were issued their appointment letters, I sent out what we call the ministerial mandates, what they are expected to achieve within the next 4 years. And this is on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis. Or they have units in their ministries that report to the Central Coordinating Unit here. And we have a template that we use for the purposes of feeding in the data into the system, so that at the end of the day, with the tap of a button, you will know exactly if we have awarded a contract for the second Niger Bridge, where are we now in terms of the expenditure? If the contract is 100 billion for the construction of the second Niger Bridge, how much has been expended? What is left? If there are constraints, who is supposed to deal with those constraints? So that there will be a timely execution of the contracts, because governments lose a lot of resources when they don't timely execute contracts. So that we are moving towards that. So, and I believe that this is all in support of the open government process, because we are also developing a citizen app that the citizens will have an opportunity of looking at the projects that we have set and the policies that we have set and the programs that we have set, and be able to give us feedback. I understand, Pamsek, you said the website is being created for that, and an app will be launched very soon, so that the citizen sitting in his house, wherever he is in this country, will be able to contribute and find out what really is happening with regards to the execution of the budget. Minister Clem would attest to the fact that when they bring contracts to the Federal Executive Council, one of the things that we always want to see is that, was this contract advertise. So you even have to state and photocopy and attach to the contract documents in which national paper was it advertised. All in an attempt to make sure that there is a sense of openness even in the procurement of the contract. And I think the regulation requires that you should advertise in at least 2 national dailies and also in the national tender, because there is a national tender journal which is owned by government and it's sold at the vendor's stand. It's not free of charge. It's sold like any newspaper. You can buy it and interrogate the contracts that are being advertised there. And all agencies of government, before the procurement processes start, are advised to send out these adverts. I know some of the constraints is not about the publication, but the processes of the selection too is a thing that we need to improve on. We need to improve on. I believe going forward, we must make our contracts as competitive as possible so that government can get value for the resources that it's expending. Because with openness and competitive tenders, you definitely find out that at the end of the day, a lot would have been saved. In addition to the beneficial ownership transparency that is being put in place, I think right now the Federal Inland Revenue Services has also established a platform whereby contract payments cannot be successfully made if the company is not on the Federal Inland Revenue Service portal, linked to the GIVIS platform. So we're trying to tighten all these things so that the ownership of the company is known through the beneficial ownership portal, register that you are creating. Not only that, the company too should be making appropriate tax payments to government.
Very good. Very good.
If we are not improved on our tax collection process,
Yes.
we would have been in big trouble now.
Yes. Very good.
We would have been in big trouble.
Very good.
But because we have, over the last couple of years, been able to improve on our tax collection processes, that you cannot even be paid if you are not on a particular platform, and if you are on a particular platform, that those taxes are known and are deducted,
Yes.
we would have been in big trouble. He knows what I'm talking about.
We were discussing it yesterday.
Because our main cash cow has not been able to make any remittances in the last 5 months.
Yes, we know.
So how would we have been able to even sustain salaries, government activities? So, in a modest way, as complex as Nigeria is, I can assure you that so much of progress is being achieved. But I have taken note of the issues that you have raised, and I believe that working in partnership with the OGP, I believe that we should be able to deal with the issues of transparency and openness and inclusivity. Because when the people feel that they are part of what is happening, they always have this, they will always have it at the back of their mind that they need to protect the system because they have interrogated the system and they have participated in the eventual outcomes of the system. It's a little bit difficult because it's a paradigm shift. It's a total change in culture. It's always difficult. It comes with a lot of resistance, even from the operators of the system first. Before even the people outside, the operators of the system do not like transparency and openness because that takes away the control from them and gives the control out to the people. So it's a major challenge, but I can tell you that we are resolved, we are determined to ensure that we succeed in living a sustainable system. Like what we are doing with this central delivery unit, why I prefer to go the route of an executive order so that we can quickly have this in place. All successive governments coming after us would have a model that they can build on. It might not be a perfect one now, but they can build on it. so that the people will have an opportunity of saying that, okay, every Wednesday at the end of the Federal Executive Council, you list out the number of contracts in billions of naira that have been awarded. Where are they? We want to know how much has been expended, what was provided for in the budget, and what is the state of progress or completion of the project, and if there are problems, whose responsibility it is to clear those problems so that we can have the project executed or the policy followed up to implementation or the program initiated. So it's a whole range of complex things, but I can assure you that we will do the best we can to ensure that at least our rating in the OGP keeps rising, and we will not give it an opportunity. So I want to thank you for this visit, and whatever we need to do in support of the work that you are doing, along with also, I've had the issues that you've raised with regards to find some expediencies. We take certain decisions, but with very fundamental and important issues like this, we should take decisions that would further the cause of what we are trying to achieve, not just because we want to be politically correct. So I want to thank you for this.
First of all, thank you so much, SGF. This was really to hear your further efforts that you're making and understanding how you're changing the culture and the system. If I could just make 3 quick points, SGF, to what you said. First, on the Central Delivery Unit, really, I didn't know this. Congratulations. Just to share with you, when I was Vice President at the World Bank, I used to oversee the delivery units across countries, Malaysia, UK, that started it, and so on. So UK. Tony Blair. Tony Blair, I used to work very closely with Tony Blair and Jim Kim, who was the president. So congratulations on that. You mentioned ministerial mandates. I just wanted to mention one thing. When Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau was the chair of OGP, one thing he did, which was very interesting, it changed the game in Canada. He published the ministerial mandate letters. It changed the game completely. Citizens could see what was the mandate letter. It just changed the equation. So I just wanted to leave you with that thought. And the last thought in that thing, you mentioned a citizen app, and the citizens can monitor the projects and so on. And I want to commend Minister Akbar has done iMark, which is on capital projects, and Citizen Eyes and Ears in Kaduna. They're all similar. One thing I wanted to just mention to you, if you're, I know soon it'll be elections, but there's one thing Italy did, which was very interesting. They created an open coesione platform where they disclosed all their projects to citizens. But the key thing they did is, together with the Citizens app, they did a massive awareness building campaign with citizens so that citizens could know what was there. And they did high school competitions where school students started monitoring public projects. This is a way for students and citizens to become monitors of government projects, which is a very interesting. So I just wanted to leave you with that. One thing just on open contracting that you mentioned, SGF, very helpful to know about the advertisement in the newspapers. I just wanted to tell you that share with you that 70 OGP governments have committed to open contracting. And when I was Vice President of the World Bank, we created an entity called the Open Contracting Partnership, which is a very good institution which helps these 70 countries. But one of the frontier areas, because Nigeria is so tech savvy, is to ensure that the contracts, in addition to being advertised in the newspapers, are also disclosed in what is being called as open contracting data standards. So the reason this changes the game is that they're not in PDF documents and they're not in newspaper ads. They are searchable by civil society. And PPDC, for instance, in Nigeria is a fantastic civil society organization which monitors these contracts. So building on what you're doing anyway, if you could require that these are published in open contracting data standards in Ukraine, that is what changed the game. It immediately changed the transparency And the last point, if I could ask Aidan to just mention on the civil service point, the rules point.
Yeah, there was closure of public information that is allowed by the FOIA law is by default or is automatic, and civil servants don't feel like they are endangering their own careers by providing information we should actually be provided. And maybe just a modest offer, in Tanzania, where I'm from, we have produced an access to information guide for civil servants so that it tells them what the law says and what their duty is and how they're protected by the law from disclosure. So if you think it's useful, we can provide that, and you can tailor it, of course, to Nigeria's context.
Well, definitely it will be useful to who want information. And there's hardly, I can't remember any that we've ever turned down. Yeah, we just will look at what the law says, what kind of document. There are some documents that even by their law are not supposed to be disclosed until a certain amount of years that you can have access to them. The public can have access to them. One of the, Nigeria is a very big country with 200 million people. One of the difficulties that we have in those kind of demands, some demands are informed by desire for mischief.
Yes, yes.
So the civil servants themselves are aware of some of these things, and they try as much as possible to protect themselves, because certain information going into the wrong hands can be a product of mischief, and you will not be able to. But I believe this Tanzania experience will be a very good guide for us, so that in the context of the law, the Freedom of Information Act, and also the civil service regulations, the limit, because they subscribe to the oath of secrecy when you are coming to into the civil service. One of the forms you fill. When I took my oath of office as secretary to the government, there are two oaths that you take, of allegiance and also of secrecy, which is public. So that in itself, you are mindful of that. So you wouldn't want to do anything that would be an infringement to those two oaths that you take. But I think we must find a balance.
Yeah.
So we are transiting, and we're trying to, as much as possible, create for inclusion. Because anybody that is not in government, that's why typically in Nigeria, when you talk about policies of government, our people will tell you it's their policies. One of the reasons why they say it's their policies is because they are not informed. They are not involved in the initiation of the policies. They are not involved in the execution of the policies. All they get is the output or the byproduct of whatever policies are put in place. I forgot to make a mention of the issue of the, I'm sure you are aware of the Petroleum Industry Act. That would change the whole nature of NNPC. It's now a limited liability company, wholly owned by Ministry of Finance Incorporated. And they may want to go and give out their shares in the public at a later date, I know, like other countries have done. We have battled with this for several years. Every effort to get the PIA passed has been stalled. Yes. This thing didn't start today. It started as far back under the military regime, then when the democracy, the Fourth Republic started in 1999. We've been on it. This is the only government that has been bold enough or courageous enough to say, look, let's liberalize the oil and gas industry. Government cannot continue to hold on to it. Liberalize it so that there is transparency, there is openness, and the company will either survive on its own if it's competitive and is efficient in its management, because it has become a liability to government. So let it go out there, raise its own funds, do its own businesses, let them pay royalty, let them pay taxes, and I believe at the end of the day, Clem, you earn more from this than what you are getting now.
Fantastic.
And leave it out there, let it be a competitive thing. It can compete with the one Amanco from Saudi Arabia or the one that is owned by Brazil. It can compete anywhere it wants to. It's not even restricted to competing in Nigeria. If they think they can go and buy a refinery in Argentina and run and make money for the Nigerian government, let them go and do it. Government cannot continue to keep these national assets in the manner in which we've run them and expect it to be any productive. So I served on the transition committee in 2015 that ushered in this government. Our first recommendation was within the period of 90 days, subsidies should be removed. This is a big burden on the people of the country. But I understood the perspective of the president then when he said, look, we're being elected not to add additional burden on the people of Nigeria, but to lighten their burden. And we have held on to this in the last 7 years. The PIA has set out a timetable of how we would exit subsidy, or whatever name you're giving it now, under recovery. Under recoveries. Under recoveries. But we will definitely exit. And now NMPC, to survive, must exit. They must exit. They can't keep it for too long. The government cannot keep it for too long. So the strategy of exit must be put in place. There's a strategy of exit. I know that you have a time frame. The strategy of exit must be put in place. We must get out of it. We must get out. But it's a gradual process. There is a headwind in the global economy. So we have to be very careful about the policies that we will take so that we do not further impoverish our people and push several millions into poverty again. We are trying to take out 100 people out of poverty. So our policies would also has to reflect the fact that we are doing that, not putting additional economic burden in a global economy that itself is in turmoil. Because right now the global economy is in turmoil. It's in turmoil. Countries that can survive this turmoil must be very, very considerate in the management of their economy and also the kind of policies that they would push out there. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Permanent secretaries here present, my brother Sanjay, Aidan, and the rest of the team. I think my assignment is very simple. The simplest that we've had today, just to say thank you. But I must especially thank the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Like I did say, I had some challenges in getting some appointments put in place, and the moment I went to him, he made it really, really easy for me and for your team that is visiting. And it was because of his help that we will be able to see Mr. President on Thursday. So SGF, we are indeed very, very grateful. I also want to thank my brother Sanjay and team for always putting Nigeria first. We thank you for the hand-holding that we've had. Each time I've had to call you on issues, the response is always very swift. Even in the midst of COVID, when we had our high-level meetings, you attended. In that meeting, we brought in the Accountant General, the Auditor General, and the various heads of MDA speaking about the issues of transparency and accountability of the COVID funds that we were disbursing. Yeah, you didn't say that the timing wasn't right, but you joined us in those meetings, so we're indeed very grateful. As you can see, the government is very well committed to being open. And that is why even last week, we went to the public with the medium-term expenditure framework, just so that Nigerians will understand our fiscal space. If we wanted to play politics, we will keep quiet about it. We allow Nigerians to express themselves. And I am glad that you have acknowledged that we have made a lot of improvement in a couple of areas. And again, you did speak to the areas where you feel that improvements are needed. I wish that our opposition and our Nigerian citizens speak that way, because all you hear is that nothing is being done. In terms of revenue to GDP, it's quite low. We are number 2 from behind. It's not something to be proud of, about 7% to GDP. And that in itself brings with it a lot of challenges. And Nigeria is a big country.
You know, a lot of people like to compare us with Dubai. When you look at the one city and the resources that come, if the government was just to spend all his money in Abuja, you can imagine what Abuja will turn to. But we are having to spread ourselves. From the executive side, we understand what needs to be done, but constitutionally, we always have to go to the National Assembly to get our appropriations passed. And because they represent different parts of the country, they want to see that certain things are done from where they come. But the problem in that is you have a loaf of bread and you want to make a sandwich, and the butter you have is so small. So if you spread it across the entire loaf, you never would have a sandwich because you won't even feel the taste of the butter. So that's the issue that we have. A lot is being done. And so this government has had to create some vehicles to ensure that certain levels of infrastructure is delivered, like the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund. That is taking care of the Second Niger Bridge. Second Niger Bridge has been in the budgets for, as far as I know, more than 19 years, but no one has ever seen a bridge. But now, in the last 4 years, the bridge is now connected from Asaba to Onitsha. So Nigerians can see it, Nigerians can touch it, Nigerians can feel it. And that's the way we are delivering. This government has also now finished the construction of the second longest bridge in the country that connects the northeast to the southeast. And what that bridge has done is that it takes away about 6 hours of travel.
Wow.
You know, and this is across River Benue. It soon will be commissioned by Mr. President. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway has been on for as long as I know. But by the end of this year, it will be completed and it will be commissioned also by Mr. President. Same thing too for the Kaduna-Kano Expressway. So you can imagine that if all of these projects are in one location, nobody will go to Dubai.
Yeah.
So the government is making a lot of efforts in spite of the dwindling revenues that we have. You heard what the SGF has said about NNPC. You know, in fact, the NNPC now publishes its accounts. That is another way of being open. In the past, national development plans were done by consultants, thrown at us, sent to the subnationals, and then they endorse. But this time around, the president said no. It shouldn't go that way. It has to be developed by Nigerians. It is not a federal plan. It must be a national development plan. And because there are 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory and the federal government and 774 local governments, everyone must be involved. So representation was sent. So we are proud to say that the national development plan that we have put in place is not a federal government plan. In fact, invitations were extended to the opposition political party to participate at the highest body of the planning process, which is the National Steering Committee. So we had the PDP invited, we had APGA invited, and then APC. These are the three main political parties at the level of the Senate. We brought in all forms of diversities into the room. And today we have a document that belongs to Nigerians and has been launched by Mr. President. The IMAC that we talk about is now live. If you go to imac.ng, you see it, and after this meeting, we'll be doing a demo for you in my office. We have already loaded the 2021 budget and the 2022 budget into the IMAC. Wow. And what the IMAC does for us, which is a little different from the central delivery unit, is from the central delivery units, you are getting inputs from the government side. But IMAC gives opportunity for citizens to be engaged. IMAC uses geospatial technology. The Grid 3 is coordinated by my office. And what we are doing is to layer the Nigerian budget, that's the federal government budget, on the Nigerian map so that it will have unique latitude and longitude for each project. So Nigerians are able to download that app on their phone
Fantastic.
and monitor the projects for us. Our National Monitoring and Evaluation Department is just 30 people. And then in the budget office, we still have an M&E unit of another 20. So that makes 50. And then we are looking at about 30 to 40,000 projects. 50 people can never monitor them effectively. But I believe that 200 million Nigerians can better monitor the 30 or 50,000. And this is what the IMAC gives to Nigerians, so that they can get back to us with how well they feel that we have done. And in the event that there are disputes between what the citizens have said and what the MDAs are saying, then the National Monitoring and Evaluation Department can now go fiscally to actually see what has been done. So we are still doing a lot more, even though people feel that we are slow. But I think that SGF, we haven't really done well like the Agama lizard. You know, we haven't done much in praising ourselves. We have just concentrated on working. So you're welcome to Nigeria. Thank you very much for the visit, and I pray that you enjoy the rest of your stay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the summary of pictorials of different sites in Nigeria. That's why it's never discovered Nigeria. Wonderful. It's produced by the National Photographer.
Oh, wow.
It's a token of our appreciation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We celebrated June 12th, which is our Democracy Day.
Oh, wonderful.
So these are typical Nigerian souvenirs. Made out of material, and also it's fully made in Nigeria.
Such an honor. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We can now move to the